So as I sit down to record this, the date is Saturday, September the 24th, 2022. The 2022-2023 NHL season is just a couple of weeks away from getting started. And of course, everybody should have expected the Edmonton Oilers to go out and make some headlines this year during the offseason. Particularly given that this is the year that so many people seem to think that this is their make or break year to try to win a Stanley Cup. To try to build on that, on that exit in the Western Conference Final last year, push a little bit further and finally win the Cup. And so, of course, the Edmonton Oilers, they did make some big changes in the offseason. I haven't really talked about any of them yet. There were a lot of people that didn't necessarily think that they were going to be able to re-sign Evander Kane, but they did get Evander Kane re-signed. And of course, they did go out and they made some other very interesting big moves, like in particular acquiring goaltender Jack Campbell, formerly of the Toronto Maple Leafs, who was the big free agent signing this year. He's going to be here in Edmonton now for the next 5 years. And with any luck, he's going to be a much better goaltender here than he was in Toronto, or I should say rather, an even better goaltender here than he was in Toronto. Well, hopefully a good deal more consistent. But that's not actually what I established, what I'm recording this video here today to talk about. And it wasn't even the biggest headline that the Oilers have actually made in the offseason. And as it turns out, that the biggest headline that the Edmonton Oilers have generated in this offseason wasn't any of their free agent signings. It was actually a signing that they made to a professional tryout. And so, of course, what I'm talking about is the case of Jake Virtanen. So Jake Virtanen, he is definitely no stranger to Edmonton Oilers fans, because when he came into the league, he came in with the Vancouver Canucks, and he actually had a couple of really good seasons before he was accused of, let's just say, a certain crime that galvanizes a lot of emotion, and really for good reason. And so Jake Virtanen, he was accused of sexual assault, by a girl in Vancouver, who said that she was 18 years old at the time. And so the entire thing, it took a few years to work its way through the court, and Jake Virtanen, he hasn't played in the NHL during that time. Now, he did go over to to Russia. He played in the Continental Hockey League for a couple of seasons. But he left when the war in Ukraine started, and so now he's on his way back to the NHL, hopefully to find himself a place to play in North America, or at least so he hopes. And so, as it just so happens that in the intervening period since he left Russia, his court case before the courts in British Columbia came to a conclusion, and what the jury finally decided in the end was that Jake Virtanen was not guilty of sexual assault. Now, I think it's necessary to cover some bases here and just kind of establish that just because somebody was declared not guilty doesn't necessarily mean that they were innocent. But when you actually examine all of the coverage of this particular case, what it kind of comes out of the woodwork is that basically there were only two witnesses in the entire case. There was the accuser and there was the accused. And all of that went on before a jury. And whether anybody out there agrees with it or not, or anybody out there thinks that they know better or not, in the end the jury decided that there was not enough evidence there to convict Jake Virtanen. Now, obviously, what he was accused of is a horrible, horrific crime that should never happen. If it happens once, it happened too often, and unfortunately, it happens in our society far, far, far more often than it should. And every bit as unfortunately, the mere accusation alone can often be enough to completely destroy a person's life. And there has been an ever-increasing number over the last few years of cases that have actually turned out to be fake. They turned out to be hoaxes. False accusations made, with, let's just say, not good intentions. We don't know enough about this case to know if this is one of them. So to even suggest that maybe it is would be exceedingly foolish. But I think that there is one question that we have to ask, is that if you cannot prove beyond a reasonable doubt that such a crime actually occurred, is it right or fair that a person's life should be completely destroyed for the rest of their life just on the basis of an accusation that could never be proven? is it all reasonable to say that a person's career, their chosen vocation, should be completely destroyed, for the rest of their life just on the back of such an accusation, off the accusation alone? Because as we saw in this case, whatever merit there may have been to the accusation, it couldn't be proven. Now, obviously, these aren't pleasant questions to ask. And unfortunately, they're not even the only unpleasant questions that are surrounding this team right now. I mean, last year I did sit down, actually pretty close to this time last year, when the Kyle Beach allegations finally came to light, and I asked a question, a simple question: how much did Duncan Keith know about it, and when did he know, and what did he do about it if he knew? We never did get the answers to those questions. Duncan Keith has retired from hockey. He's moved into an office job with the Edmonton Oilers. If he hasn't answered those questions by now, it's pretty obvious that he's never going to answer them, which is unfortunate, because it would be nice to know, especially now that he's moving into a back office job. But like I said back then, and I'll repeat it now, I mean, I'm just one podcaster. I'm just one man with one bitty cannon. I can't make Duncan Keith answer those questions. And the people who have the power to make him answer those questions, they don't seem to be very interested in asking that question. That's unfortunate, but that is what it is. And on the other hand, we have Bob Nicholson, also in the front office of the Edmonton Oilers organization. He is right dab in the middle of the Hockey Canada allegations, and he absolutely has to be. The number of buy-offs, to cover sexual assault allegations in that organization is absolutely atrocious. And they have just recently, a third one has come to light. There were two definite known cases that were in the media. In the past week, there's been a third come to light. Bob Nicholson had been with that organization through most of them. There are some serious questions to ask there. And so, no, Jake Virtanen is not the only cause to ask these questions within the organization right now. And that really sucks, because I think that after the way that the last season ended, and after some of the exciting developments in this offseason, Edmonton Oilers fans, we just want to talk about hockey. We just want to sit down, watch some hockey, and hopefully enjoy the Edmonton Oilers winning a Stanley Cup. We don't want to have to talk about these things, but we do. But even then, in the specific case of Jake Virtanen, I think that a lot of these people that are lambasting the organization for signing him to this PTO, they need to check their fire on this one. They need to sit down and shut up. For all the people that were saying that they were going to, no longer, they were going to leave and no longer be fans of this organization, if there was another one of these, might as well go now. You might as well go now, because as far as I'm concerned, if you want to, withdraw your fandom in some grand dramatic gesture, if such a thing would even matter for much of anything, and at least do it over a case where you can actually prove that there was something that happened. Don't demand that somebody's career be destroyed just over the fact that there ever was just a mere allegation. There are reasons why Jake Virtanen might not join the Edmonton Oilers when it comes to the regular season. Apparently in the KHL, his game seems to have shown some signs of decline. His scoring was outpaced by players that never made it in the NHL. So as it happens to pertain to Jake Virtanen, he might not even make this team just because of where he is right now as a player. But if he doesn't make this team, that's the reason why he shouldn't make this team. Not because a bunch of other people can't accept a not guilty verdict. And of course, all of those other questions, they don't go away. Unfortunately, they do remain. But we'll have to answer those questions, as those answers come to light.